Hello, my fellow humans. Let's get ready for another zombie apocalypse. Today, let's talk about Dying Light, Stay Human. I'm a sucker for a good zombie apocalypse, so I'm hyped and ready to jump into this game, and I want to just take the time today to cover about what we are expecting upon the release of the game, and then I want to be able to update you guys on the gameplay as I get into it. So first, let's talk about the release of the game. Like I said, worldwide, it'll be available to everybody on February 4th. It's coming out console and PCs and even Switch a little bit later on. But if you're lucky enough, the Dying Light official Twitter actually tweeted out an infographic that shows the availability per time zone, so you didn't have to do the conversion yourself. And if I believe I looked at it right, and I think I'll actually have availability to play the game as early as the 3rd at 6 p.m. Central, since I'm here in the Central time zone. So if that's true, I get a little sneak peek. You can hop on my YouTube channel. I'm probably gonna go live when I first play it, just to get that initial reaction and get to know the game before I start making videos about it and kind of reacting or reviewing of what we're going to cover today, what we think it's going to be like, and then what we actually get. Just a quick summary on what's going on, what we know what's going on in Dying Light 2. We're going to be playing as a character named Aiden. We're looking for, the cure for this zombie apocalypse in what is called the city. And it's set 15 years after the events in Haran in Dying Light 1. And now that Haran virus that they were trying to contain is spread worldwide. So I'm not sure if they're going to give us any clue where exactly the city is, but we know we're one of the last few survivors, or at least few humans unaffected. Before we get into gameplay we're expecting and about the specific game, let me just share some quick facts. It's going to take 500 hours to fully complete. 500. So this is where I'm really happy that I'm not a completionist in the gaming world, because I have barely enough time to play the game I want to play, but to do 500 hours to complete the entire game without any of that getting a little bit too boring or too meticulous, I'm good. But I mean, at least it means a lot of game is there as you kind of want to dabble. Of those 500 hours, it says there's going to be 20 hours of story, so it's a pretty decent campaign you're going through. But more interestingly, they're going to be supporting this game, at least as of right now, for the next 5 years with extra content. You expect DLC packs. I'm sure things are going to come out to buy. So I wonder if they're going to treat this almost as seasons as you would in like the BR world. So it should be interesting if they actually stick to it. That'll be great, because even now Dying Light 1 has aged fine. It's been a great game and received a decent amount of support after that's released. So, and I had a ton of fun playing Dying Light 1, so that's why I'm super psyched about Dying Light 2. Hopefully they deliver on the promises that they're making ahead of time. So some gameplay stuff. So what really set Dying Light 1 apart from other games I played similar to zombie, the zombie genre, was the parkour system they had and the way that you moved around the map. It was a cool new way to kind of avoid zombies while actually feeling like you were using the terrain to your advantage as a person that can run up and jump on a dumpster, jump on a roof. The zombies would be able to do the same too, but a lot of times in games it can feel weird when, like, especially zombie games, when you would do anything to avoid getting bit, or you're running from a horde, and let's say in a game there would be cars out, but they didn't make that a climbable object, so you want to hop up on the car, and you might be able to do it if it glitches for you, or it's just not an option. So it kind of takes out some of that. What's the word I'm looking for? That immersion. Takes out some of that immersion for you if you have things that you can't climb. So it was really fun in Dying Light 1. The way you would kind of grapple up and get up a building, or the second story, or just to avoid volatiles at night, being able to run through, slide through traps and activate traps for them and stuff. And it was a really cool way they did it. So now they know that we love that, and now they're promising double the amount of parkour moves, which sounds awesome. I'll get to do even more, but you want to have the speck of realism in there of, is this something they're going to overdo, or are they going to add things that kind of take away from the game? I don't mind limited abilities or limited moves if it means they're done really, really well. If you give me a ton of moves, but most of them don't work, or some of them even kind of take away from that immersion, it could be a little dangerous. So while I like hearing that they invested more, and I've seen videos where they've had the motion capture suit on, you know, parkourist, and to really capture those movements, that sounds good, but execution and support is the only thing that's got me a little bit nervous. So I don't want to be overwhelmed with too many things of evading zombies. I'd rather have the few things I know how to do really, really well, and do those. So we'll just kind of wait and see the first few plays what they offer, and how we can handle parkour. But if they do as good of a job they did in Dying Light 1 and just kind of build a little bit on that, it should be a fun aspect to it. One of the other bigger points I saw when I started looking up the game, when I knew it was going to be releasing, was the day and night cycle. So in Dying Light 1 they had the day and night cycle. Zombies were out in the open all of the time, and then at night you would have the volatiles that would come out, which are, you know, the scarier version, the faster, meaner zombies that you would need that UV light to defend yourself with, and the UV traps and stuff like that. Now we're getting a little different. So now they are letting us know that the day is going to be pretty much just humans out. Zombies are really kind of night creatures, even all the different sorts of zombies there are. The only zombies you're going to find in the daytime are those that are kind of like in dark, abandoned buildings that no one's really gone into. They're kind of hanging out in those dark areas. And then at night, they must just kind of come out and roam freely. So, it's kind of interesting because I'm wondering how it's going to balance with having all of the usual infected zombies, because there's a few different types of their zombie classes before you get to the volatile class that, you know, is going to try to run you down and scare you. So in like Dying Light 1, if I were out at night trying to do a mission or just running around, and I came across a volatile, you would be able to kind of move around. You had a little bit of space between them, and then if you got engaged in a chase, you were pretty much just worried about where that volatile was and not attracting another one. So now, are we going to have a bit of a cram where I could be potentially running from a volatile and now have to deal with a bunch of regular zombies that are just there? So it's going to be interesting to see that. They also said that they made nighttime a little less scary, which is good for me, because I was terrified to go out at night in Dying Light 1, and it's a big reason why I don't even think I never finished the game. But anytime I loaded up the game, I only played during the day, and even then that was a stressful time. I went out at night one time in the beginning to figure out how to do it, and it was so intense that I just avoided it for the next few times that I played the game, until eventually I stopped playing. Which is something, you know, even if it was just as bad or just as intense, which I hope it is, because that's a great feeling, I'm gonna have to work through and get over it, and hopefully making videos about the game is gonna kind of help with that. But they did say they kind of scaled down the nighttime intensity, so it'll be interesting just to kind of see how to navigate that. So I hope it's still maybe like 50% as intense as the first one, so that way it's still a lot of thought to go out at night. Another feature that they're going to have, that they're obviously bringing back, is the ability to modify your weapons, and you know, to keep them from breaking or repair them when they do break, and add things to them. So I'm not really I don't have too much expectations in the weapon category, and honestly it's not something I care about too much. I don't need a lot. I liked how the system was in the first game, where you can find a crowbar and you can upgrade it. Granted, I didn't get too far in the game, so I don't know what came after, you know, maybe the first few missions, but I like being able to modify, you know, having to find the materials to modify weapons to make them better, and then to deal with the durability. So I haven't seen too much about it, other than, you know, obviously it's coming back. There's a big mechanic. I'm not really looking forward to build a specific thing or to target something right now. We'll see if that happens in game, but right now I'm just happy that, you know, you could find a crowbar or something off the ground and make it useful, and then keep adding to it or find better ones. Other cool things that I'm just going to read off that I found that, you know, I hope will make the gameplay a little bit more interesting, and what's different from Dying Light 1. we saw in one of the trailers, you can use the infected to break your falls. So I'm curious as how high of a fall I can get away with using an infected to be that cushion for me. Apparently, I read something. I wrote down hide in vents. So I think you can move through vents. I think I wrote that short, but I think that means you can move through vents using it as a hiding spot to get away from infected. Like we said, there's going to be infected in dark buildings even during the day, so it might be a thing where you might be walking through the building, accidentally come across way too many, and be able to run and maybe dive into a vent, move to a safer part of the building or something, or it's just a stationary thing where you hide in the vent and you can reemerge once they kind of pass. So you'll see. But I thought it was cool. I like when environmental things come in handy, especially in the zombie games, because yeah, I mean, if I'm running for real life zombie, I'm trying everything I can to get away. So give me something extra is pretty cool. There's something you can have binoculars to scout and mark targets. Cool feature. Probably not one I would use too much, and I can see this being a really mission heaven thing, but you know, it is a bigger map. It's supposed to offer you a lot more space than the first game did, so maybe binoculars would be much more helpful, and maybe you can kind of see where hordes are. If zombies are mainly out during nighttime, though, they may not be the best unless they're infrared or something, but we'll see. And a little bit more about the tech tree. So we're going to have a combat tree and a parkour tree, and obviously the goal here is to get the skill points and to focus on, you know, both, but kind of where you want to lean into it. You know, obviously if you invest in parkour, you're spending more of your time evading than actually fighting infected, or vice versa. You become a super good fighter and you won't have too many moves to get away, but hopefully you're a good enough fighter to do it. I don't have a preference right now what I would really focus on. I generally do too many balance builds, honestly, so I will it'll depend on kind of the beginning of the game, wherever I feel like the sticking point is. Generally combat for me will go a little bit earlier, and then I'll reinvest in parkour when I feel like I got a good spot fighting. So but again, game could change that. I might just want to go heavy in parkour to get away from zombies, to do certain missions if it's easier just to do it that way, and then come back with combat when I have better weapons. But I haven't seen too much about it, what it's really going to offer, so I'm not going to do too much of a deep dive there. Other thing I saw was, while you have the stats and perks coming from your parkour or your combat tree, outfits, what you wear off are going to give you buffs depending on what you're wearing. So I'm sure if you find helmets or things like that, a little bit more armor, maybe some things for stealth or being quiet. Another cool feature. Again, it makes things feel useful, which is something that I look forward to in most games, but especially zombie games. Everything in my world or near me should be useful, because again, we're in a situation where we're going to need to be resourceful. So I like where you get some buff from that. Hopefully it doesn't break the game where you can really have a crazy outfit. Then I did read, while we're on that the parkour and combat is made harder because they have more enemy types now. So you know, you kind of have to plan for more interactions between different zombies than maybe just a couple, and of course there's more moves, so more moves to defend against, but also more moves that you can do, which is gonna be fun. And then bigger thing in this game is, it looks like they're trying to balance out the threat, where, you know, the threat usually in zombie genres are the zombies, you know, avoid, kill, whatever you gotta do to get away from a zombie. But here they're bringing in factions. So I think what they want to do between the day and night cycle is, daytime you're going to be worried about your other humans. There's certain factions depending on which one you join. I'm sure there's enemy factions and allied factions, and they all have their own goals and things like that. So during the day you're most likely going to be fending off enemy factions or fighting for territories, or, you know, whatever the mechanics behind those factions will be. At night's the only time you should really have to worry about the zombies. And, you know, even during the day you might run into them accidentally trying to avoid, you know, people or things. But it feels like they're going for a much more balanced threat here, where humans can be just as dangerous, maybe more dangerous in this game than even the zombies are. The zombies are just kind of there, and we're, you know, all collectively as survivors dealing with zombies, but trying to outwit the enemy humans and trying to foil their plans if they have anything bad going on. So this would be an interesting balance. I was reading that you can ally with different factions. I'm not sure if it's just like any different time or you have to do specific things, but I do know that the environment will change depending on what faction that you side with, and it'll kind of get made to whatever that faction is. So the factions that exist in the game are the survivors, the peacekeepers, and the renegades. So survivors are just like the people, they're just focused on surviving. Nothing past getting away from zombies is really what they are really thinking about. Their weapons are pretty basic, but they're your parkours. They're the ones that are really good at evading and running away from zombies, because that's the style they go with. Their combat's usual stuff. You pick up a crowbar, you use it. They're not investing heavily into guns or heavy artillery or anything like that. They're more of your typical zombie survivor. Peacekeepers are like a paramilitary. They have the uniform. They've got this blue tint to their uniforms, helmets, usually have some guns, and put a lot more into combat than they do actually running away. So these guys are here to kind of hold the line against the zombies. Now the renegades are apparently the first enemy faction that we're going to encounter. Now whether they stay an enemy faction the entire time is dependent on the game, and we'll all find out. But they seem to be more inducing chaos. They probably are similar to survivors, that they're focused on just getting past the zombies at the point this game's in now. People have been living with zombies, obviously for 15 years after the first event. So however long it took to spread, at least a decade. And they probably are rejecting the usual, the pre-society before this with governments, and they are probably fighting to make sure a new government isn't instilled, or they're the new government and they're a little bit more extreme. Who knows? We'll find out. And I even think they're led by a guy named the Colonel, so be interesting to see what this Colonel wants to, what his goals are. I'm guessing it's more of authoritarian type thing than anything else. And that is the summary of what we're looking forward in Dying Light Stay Human. I'm sure there's a lot more news and things out there. When I take a look at a game before I play it, I'm generally just looking at kind of what mechanics and what gameplay things we're expecting. I try not to go too deep because I really don't want to spoil anything about the game. Like, I want the things in the game to be a surprise. And a lot of times people are very good at uncovering things in games, or at least having hints. And I just kind of want to keep my mind clear when I go into it. So I generally just try to get the surface look. Stay away from anything deep unless there was, some huge red flags or some issues. This game I'm planning to play. It's already pre-ordered, ready to get downloaded before it comes out. So it's a done deal. I'm going to play it. So stick around here. Check out my YouTube channel at TC Studios. If you want to see me play the game before you end up buying it, or if you're not so sure and you're on the fence, wait and see. Usually that's what I do with other games that I'm not so sure of. I'll kind of find the streamers or the content creators that I know, see what the game looks like from what they're playing it. If there's anything big bugs or it just doesn't look as great as we were promised, then I know either stay away or it looks super fun and I miss a day or two of the game, but I download that immediately. So I'm happy to be that for you. Given the experience with Dying Light 1, that kind of just snuck in and ran the gambit for a while, I'm confident in Techland's ability to deliver an equally good and equally satisfying game in Dying Light 2 or in Dying Light Stay Human. But there are some red flags that popped up that I found while just trying to figure out what's going on in the game and any new news leading up and making sure we're staying on release. So, unfortunately, it looks like Techland is not independent of the other issues that have been, I don't want to say been plaguing game developers or game publishers, but issues that have existed in the gaming world that are becoming uncovered now because people are able to speak out or to get information out much easier. I wish I wrote the day, but I know at some point along making this game, Techland lost their lead writer who had been with the company for 22 years. From what I understand, it wasn't an abrupt leaving. The person stayed on until the person that was taking their role kind of cross-trained and was ready to go. So it doesn't appear, he was there one day and gone the next. So there's hope that it doesn't really mess with the story or mess the direction the game was going up on, because this happened kind of later in development. So I'm hopefully that the story's there, and the person that took over really just had to see it through, maybe added a little bit of their own things to it, but not, I don't think they scrapped a huge part of the story and rewrote it and redid a lot of things. But you never know. Changes can be disruptive. So that'd be one thing we're looking at from the story point of view. Is it fleshed out? Is it good? If not, can we blame it on this departure and this new arrival, or is it something else? And speaking of something else, it could be the various employee complaints coming from within Techland, and these are coming from your higher ranked employees. Obviously, we should all listen when people that work at a company are telling us what it's truthfully like to work at a company. But the fact that this is coming from higher people higher up the chain is more concerning, because generally those people are fine to keep going and really not make too much noise. So, one thing is they've had a high turnover rate, which again, it goes into the quality that we're getting. If you're constantly bringing people in and having people leave, there's work to be done, work to be made up, and mistakes that could go missed, or things that could really hold up development because of so much switching. So high turnover is never good to hear, and they've been plagued with that. A lot of the reasoning coming from the high turnover is what they described as an autocratic management style coming from the CEO all the way down. So it's not just one mid-level management or something that's coming from the person running the company and it's through, which has been described as a very toxic work environment because it's in such high levels and it's permeated through this point, which obviously doesn't make people want to be at work, doesn't make you want to put your best foot forward. And I unfortunately think these kind of environments are very common in workplaces because it has been able to be under wraps or just kind of go unchecked for so long. And I'm glad it's starting to get checked now. But when we're dealing with a very collaborative project as a video game is, with so many departments working together to deliver a satisfactory game, it doesn't take too much to really take a great game and bring it to a good game, or a great game and bring it to a terrible game or unplayable game. I don't think this is going to be the case with Dying Light, but I do expect we're going to see kind of a lot of weird gaps, whether that's in the story, whether that's just some bugs, wherever it may present itself. And I think these things are kind of good to keep in the back of the mind of what could be happening, and how they address this with the release of the game. It's been a highly anticipated game for as long as it's been announced, and they really need to address all these workplace complaints to fix them if they want to continue making good games, because they might be able to squeak by with Dying Light 2 being a satisfactory game, but any game after that, it might start to fall off, and it might really become evident. In that complaint too, the one of the other ones lodged against them was poor planning, which is a big concern for a game. Like I said, there's so many different departments and so much collaboration happening on that. Planning is essential with anything, but especially in making a video game. If you don't have a good plan, or you're unable to stick to a plan, and you're constantly changing it because you have high turnover or there's not that much collaboration because you're not allowing a good space for people to speak, then you're just not going to make a good product. I think the company's culture is going to be more evident in the support. I mean, again, they're planning to support this game for 5 years post-release. And I think if we have a company that's not in the spot it's supposed to be in developing a game, we can see huge gaps in patches. We can see huge gaps in content being released, or the quality of the content being released for the game isn't there. It'll become very evident quickly after a couple of DLCs, or if the company just tries to get us with these microtransactions, for weapons, for skins, for whatever it might be. If they try to put more things behind a paywall, then it's gonna look like a money grab, and it's just not gonna be a good look for them. So I think Techland has a lot more riding on this game that they may be anticipating right now, and we'll keep our ears to the news there and just see what new developments come out of that. I already know people within the company were upset with how early they announced Dying Light 2. And as we know, it's been postponed a couple of times, but it's been a long waited game because they announced it so early that I think it just put an undue pressure on the team working on it, and now it seems like they just kept that pressure going. So my corporate rambling is done for that. I never want to not and say that, because it's generally what can make or break a game is going to be the company behind it and how well they're operating. So we will see. I will blame Techland company culture on a poor game if it's evident. But other than that, let's just loose speculation now. What I want from this Dying Light experience is honestly just a fun game where killing zombies feels fun, not repetitive, gives you a couple different finishing moves. Having to get away from zombies in creative ways, or get away from hordes in creative ways, is something that we've got a lot in Dying Light 1. So again, I want that same thing in Dying Light 2, and I want to be not afraid to go out at night. That third one's generally, that's on me. Gotta muster up the courage to make it through this game. But I think I will. It's been a while, so I have a good faith in that. Dying Light content, once it releases, I'm going to go live just to do the initial kind of reaction to it. And then I'm just going to keep the series going in a gameplay series as I kind of go through it. And hopefully I'm not complaining about the mechanics or anything like that. Hopefully you find some good stuff and it's a fun experience overall, but we'll find out. And we'll see how long it takes me to get through the story, or how much of the game I get through, depending on the experience we get. And there's gonna be a multiplayer aspect too. So I'm not sure how they'll do like the multiplayer matching. I messed around with it a little bit in Dying Light 1, but not too much. But drop a comment here on the video if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening, feel free to venture over to YouTube and find the podcast video and drop a comment here if you want to link up for some multiplayer in the zombie world of the city. And let me know if you plan on how do you feel about the prospects of Dying Light 2? Are you excited that it's coming out? Are you kind of nervous with all those Techland things I had to mention, or any other things that you've seen about the gameplay making you kind of nervous? Because I know there are a few gameplay videos out, but like I said, I avoid them for trying to go in with a clean slate. So you let me know how you're feeling down here in the comments. I appreciate you stopping by the video. Please don't forget, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for me. That'll be awesome. And I'm gonna keep these going now, and I look forward to seeing you in the city.